Dan Tanner and Marshall Colwell on 7. The top point scorers from all the other sides, Brad Garrett from the Coast finished with 5, Alan Langer from Ipswich with 4, and Troy Evans from Central Queensland with 4. But the winner of the country Winfield Player of the Series, Peter Gill from Toowoomba with 10 points, and will be announcing wonderful prizes for those competitions when the Winfield State League has been completed. The late game is going to be between Souths and Brothers, and here even the rival coaches Ross Strudwick and Wayne Bennett weren't prepared to make a selection. They believe it's going to be so close. You're an old Souths man, Bruce. Can the old club win?
Well, they've always had trouble in the past winning league games, but we've never had too much trouble in semi-finals. I'm going to pick Souths. I think they've had one win each this season, but I think Souths will be too strong overall for Brothers.
Well, some players that we'll be interested to see. Mel Meninga, of course, playing his first game back from England in the centres for Souths, and in the forwards, Eddie Muller, certainly in the running for a state jersey. In the Brothers side, it'll be interesting to see Chris Roach in the Brothers starting lineup. The former Wallaby international had a good game against the Gold Coast last week. Game chock full of interest. Going to make a selection in the late game, Martin?
I'll go Brothers.
Go for Brothers, will he? Bruce goes for Souths. Martin goes for Brothers. I'll lean just slightly to Souths, but it should be a top match. And for being our guest on Big Game Preview, Martin Bella will be taking away the NEC System 700 stereo cassette recorder, a great prize from our friends at NEC, and as well the outfit of Canterbury Leisurewear, which Trina has there for you.
85 Winfield State League, the Big Game, is proudly brought to you by NEC.
And welcome back to Lang Park. Fortunately, the rain has cleared away. That storm seems to have gone around us. The Brothers side out on the field, and South's coming out now. Let's have a look at the Brothers lineup. A fullback is Tim Dwyer. Wingers are Joe Kilroy and Jeff Burns. Centres Darren Morris and Rob Grogan. The halves, Pat Shepardson, captain, and Henry Foster. Chris Roach will be at lock forward. Second rowers Dan Staines and Gary Smith. Props are Trevor Smith and Jim Heary, and the hooker will be Trevor Bailey. The coach is Ross Strudwick. The South side, coached by Wayne Bennett. Some changes in the South's lineup. At fullback will be David Burke replacing Gary Belcher. Three quarters Gary Thompson, Peter Jackson, Mel Meninga, who makes his return after his season in England with St Helens, Paul Wallace on the other wing. The halves, Gary French and Brad Sully. Lock forward and captain Norm Carr. Hubie Abbott comes into the second row with John Elias, Mark Meskel and Scott Tronk, the props, and Eddie Muller is the hooker. So a couple of changes to South's lineup, with David Burke replacing Gary Belcher at fullback, Brad Sully replacing the injured Wayne Cullen, and Hubie Abbott in the starting lineup, and Ash Lumby's been left in the reserve, so we assume that Abbott may play in the second row, but we'll have to wait and see. In the Brothers lineup, Shane McElwain and Mark Zillman out of the named side with injury, and their places have been taken by Chris Roach, the former Wallaby Rugby Union international, in the forwards, and Jim Heary in the front row replacing Mark Zillman. That breeze still coming from the northerly direction. It'll favour Brothers in the first two quarters. The referee for this afternoon's second semi-final of the Winfield State League is Brian Grant. Gary French to take the kick-off. And downfield it goes. So, Brothers in possession. Gary Smith to play it, 10 metres on his own side of half-wide. This is Chris Roach. Roach storming straight through a gap, and away he goes. He's got a bit of pace. Tries to get his pass over the top and does so to Tim Dwyer. But a good break by Chris Roach. Brothers inside the quarterway very quickly. Bailey gives his pass away through Shepardson. This is Trevor Smith. A top start by Chris Roach. Penalty goes to Brothers. Up inside the 5 against Souths, particularly Norm Carr. So Brothers will get the penalty, and Pat Shepardson has the first chance to put points on the board.
It's been unlucky there for Brothers too, because if Chris Roach looked inside, he would have seen that Henry Foster was on the inside and may have resulted in a try, but unfortunately it didn't, and they now have a chance to get 2 points.
Yes, and it's interesting, just in the South's lineup, Mel Meninga looks as though he's come into the second row for today's game. He's played, of course, a little bit in the forwards for Souths, but Meninga will play in the second row, and Hubie Abbott will start in the centres. So that's the surprise change by Wayne Bennett to swing Meninga back into the forwards for his first game back. Of course, he played the off-season or the English season with St Helens, was in their premiership winning side. They beat Hull Kingston Rovers last weekend to win the premiership. The kick by Shepherdson is there, no mistake. Brothers lead by 2-0. Incidentally, going back to our last game, the points we gave, 4 points to Brett French in our Canterbury man of the match, and he receives the outfit of Canterbury Leisure Wear. 2 points we gave to Bob Lindner, and 1 point to Greg Dowling. So Greg Dowling was the only one of those players with a chance of getting ahead of Trevor Gilmeister, and his point takes Dowling now to 9, which means that it virtually puts him out of the running. He's only got 1 game to go, and he still will finish behind Trevor Gilmeister. So Trevor Gilmeister from Norths is still the leader. Ian French is on 11. In this game, Mark Meskel on 8, Tim Dwyer on 8, Eddie Muller on 8, and Trevor Bailey on 6. They're the players that still have a hope of catching or passing Trevor Gilmeister for our Canterbury Player of the Winfield State League Series as far as the city is concerned. Now down to the touchline, and let's hear from Bruce Aston.
John, one of the reasons why Mel Meninga's been moved in the second row is that they haven't had a good line breaking forward there, and they thought that it would be a good opportune time for Malcolm to come back or make his return back and play in the forwards for South.
And probably fairly smart thinking, I would think too, Bruce. Perhaps also just taking the pressure off Mel a little bit, because he's obviously very much under the spotlight for his duties in the State of Origin team on Tuesday week, with the injury, of course, to Gene Miles. So South's in possession. This is Peter Jackson. Jackson is 11 metres short of halfway. Muller gives it away to Meninga. Then it goes to Hubie Abbott. Abbott just reaches the halfway mark before he's hit in a solid tackle. Underneath was Gary Smith, and Foster came heavily over the top. Penalty goes to Souths. Against Brothers this time for being inside the 5. So Brian Grant letting it be known that he wants a good open game. He's going to enforce a strict 5 metres, and Peter Jackson will try and... I thought at first he was going to kick for goal, but he's not. He's going to kick for line towards the outer side of Lang Park. It wasn't a good kick. Didn't make much ground, but it did find touch, which is the main thing. Tap free to be taken by Eddie Muller. Through Carr, then to Brad Sully. Gary French, bad pass. It was intended for Scott Tronk. Brad Sully making his first run-on appearance in A grade. He's been kept in reserves by Wayne Cullen so far this season. He's been the South's regular A grade halfback for a number of seasons. Tim Dwyer. Straight up the centre goes Trevor Smith. Bailey, the acting halfback. Foster on to Pat Shepherdson. With the breeze, Shepherdson kicks. David Burke drops back for it. Talented young fullback, David Burke. Gary French, tackle just on his own quarterway. This is Scott Tronk. Tackle just outside his quarter. Eddie Muller, back to Tronk. Muller again, goes from dummy half. Eddie Muller, who'll be looking for a big game today. Enhance his prospects of making the Queensland team, with Greg Conescu, the current Australian hooker and Queensland hooker, under a fair amount of pressure to hold that spot. Tim Dwyer. Almost at halfway, he'll play it. Trevor Bailey running it across field, still going, eventually able to get his pass away, taken by Robert Grogan. Jim Hearing into the side as a late replacement for Mark Zillman, who was injured in a work accident. Here he plays the ball. Foster away to Shepherdson. Tim Dwyer, taken this time ball and all by Peter Jackson. Shepherdson giving his pass away on the blind side. Trevor Smith plays it. Shepherdson again using the kick. Puts it high. Taken well, though, by young David Burke. Immediately claimed by Henry Foster. Gary Thompson. When Brothers played Souths in the opening match of the Winfield State League in appalling conditions with torrential rain coming down, Souths won by 10 points to 0 that night. And Gary Thompson scored both of their tries. This is Meninga. Out wide to Jackson. Gets his pass to Paul Wallace. Feeds it back infield. Taken by Scott Tronk. 20 metres on their own side of halfway, the Magpies. Gary French. Kicking towards touch. Dwyer back to claim it for Brothers. Dwyer reaches halfway. Taken by Sully. Kilroy's pass to Chris Roach. Roach again decides to run. Now gives it away to Shepherdson. Shepherdson's got Jeff Burns coming across him. The pass to Burns, and he's taken on the quarter away by Eddie Muller. Trevor Bailey runs himself a few metres, loses the ball. It's gone backwards. Burns will dive on it. Wasn't held. Starts to run again. Norm Carr takes him ball and all. They're inside South's quarter. Foster. Back to Trevor Smith. Bailey. Caught by Gary French, and the final tackle coming up for Brothers. Foster puts it into the air. Back for it goes Burke. Takes it, and this will be a penalty to Souths against Brothers for being offside in front of the kicker.
The Brothers need to get some points in these first 2 quarters because they have a very strong breeze behind them, as East did in the first game today. They need to get control of this game in the first half if they are to go on and win this game.
Is there NEC replay? Henry Foster putting it into the air. Tim Dwyer, this has become his specialty, charging through after those bombs. He scored some spectacular tries from them, and here's a mistake being made by Souths. And a knock-on, rules referee Brian Grant. Tim Dwyer scored some spectacular tries this season following through bombs from particularly Foster and Shepherdson. And that was his intention on that occasion. Differential penalty goes to Souths. It's against the Brothers halfback Henry Foster for failing to retire. Peter Jackson doing the line kicking. The kick finds touch. A few metres outside his own quarterway. Mark Meskel. Sully onto Scott Tronk. Tronk gets to the halfway mark with a good run. Looking both ways for support. It wasn't there, and eventually he was taken to ground by Shepherdson. Sully. To Norm Carr, and then to Meninga, storming through a gap goes Big Mel Meninga. Back inside to Peter Jackson. He couldn't take the pass. Couldn't hold on to the pass. And the touch judge coming in to make a report. Let's have a look at that on our NEC replay. Meninga storming through a gap. Jackson was superbly placed on the inside, but the pass going to ground. Gary Smith spoken to by referee Brian Grant after that touch judge's report. And this is a scrum win against the feed to Eddie Muller, and an important one. David Burke caught just short of the Brothers' quarterway. Sully away to French, then to Jackson, to Meninga again storming through. They'll work the blind side to Mark Meskel in his familiar blank jersey. Eddie Muller. Back to French. Then to Hubie Abbott. Slowed down by Chris Roach. A tackle completed by Rob Grogan. Gary French. Into the air it goes. Kilroy goes back for it. knocked dead by Tim Dwyer. So a drop out from the brothers' goalmouth. Joe Kilroy, another player in contention for a berth in the Queensland State of Origin team. I'm sure he's aware of the fine game that Brett French turned in the earlier game this afternoon. Those two would be certainly vying for one of those wing spots.
They're both very good class players, and Joe Kilroy has a chance to stay out here now to be able to show his form before the selectors.
David Burke, 8 metres into brothers' territory. Mark Meskel, back to Peter Jackson. Jackson through a small opening, now comes back to the blind, eventually decides to run to the open. To Brad Sully, then through Scott Tronk and on to Gary French. French steps around Tim Dwyer and sets sail for the line and will go in and score. He stood Tim Dwyer up effortlessly with a lovely swerve around him. And Gary French in to score underneath the post. It started with this run by Jackson. At first it looked as if he didn't know where he was going to go. Then he elected to give it to Sully, through Tronk, onto Gary French. Effortlessly got around Tim Dwyer, and a fine individual try by Gary French underneath the post.
Yeah, so Peter Jackson was lost. He didn't know where to go. He was looking for somebody to run off his pass, but he couldn't find anybody. And then he found Brad Sully outside. That ball was just went on to Gary French, and Gary French stood Tim Dwyer very easily and showed a fair bit of pace to outpace the defence and go across a very sound try.
Tim Dwyer lying back downfield watching that and almost wishing that the ground would open up and swallow him. Good piece of work there too by Scott Tronk. He fed that pass very quickly away from Brad Sully to Gary French, who was at top pace to score underneath the post to give Souths a lead of 4-2, and Gary French attempting to convert his own try. It's up and over. I suppose that's also somewhat of a surprise to me that Gary French has been preferred in the goal-kicking role to Mel Meninga, because I don't think there's any doubt Meninga will be first-choice kicker for Queensland, and I thought one from in front could have been just the sort of confidence-boosting start that Meninga would have liked.
Yes, there's been a few changes there today as far as the south side is concerned. Mel's not taking the line kicks either, and he is playing out in the back line sometimes, so he must have a roving role as far as Wayne Bennett is concerned.
It's a good day for those people who invest in the doubles, particularly if you like the number 6, because 6 and 6 were first scorers in the first game today. Wally Lewis and Mark Wilkes. Shepardson and Gary French, the pair of 6s, first scorers in the second game.
It's very unusual. The players that are very important to South today and have been a very big cog in their win so far this year are Mark Meskel and Scott Tronk. With those two players fired today, I'm sure give the South players a lot of confidence and help their win. Also, of course, Mel Meninga's back, and Mel's a very important player as well, but we haven't seen him play out here this year, and it might take him just a little bit of time to adjust to the conditions.
Peter Jackson getting that break and then getting the pass away to John Elias, and referee Brian Grant ruling the pass forward. So a scrum with Brothers Feed just outside the quarter way. Into touch it goes. That pass just fractionally forward, but Brian Grant was in line with it. So this time it's Sully's feed to the scrum, but one against the feed by Brothers hooker Trevor Bailey. Souths leading by 6 points to 2. 5 minutes from the quarter time break. Kilroy, a one-handed pass back to Tim Dwyer, keeping the attack alive. Dwyer has support in Dan Staines, got away from Norm Carr. John Elias is the tackler there, 12 metres from scoring. Bailey to Foster, then to Shepardson. Shepardson caught by Tronk and Meninga. Trevor Bailey, not quite sure where to run. Now eventually unloads his pass to Heary. And Souths just a little bit lackadaisical in their approach to defending at the moment. Just laying off a few of those Brothers players. Final tackle coming up for Brothers. They're 2 metres out from the line. Bailey, the acting halfback, to Shepardson. There's the little kick into the in goal, but too deep by Pat Shepardson. It goes dead, and Souths will come back for the quarter line tap restart. The early match this afternoon, Winner Manly in top form, defeating Easts by 40 points to 6. Souths now leading Brothers by 6 points to 2. Mestel. John Elias. Ducks under. Swinging arm from Henry Foster. Meninga out to Paul Wallace on the wing. Wallace is 10 metres short of halfway. Scott Tronk. This is Sully. Kicks out towards Kilroy's wing. Can't take it, Joe Kilroy. Did he get a hand to it? Not by the looks of things. Touch judge didn't indicate so. Which means Brothers will have the feed to the scrum. It's midway between the quarter and halfway in Brothers territory. 3 minutes to the quarter time break. Brothers scrum win. Foster to play it. And a penalty. Goes to Souths. See that again. Henry Foster was the attacking player. Yeah, ruled to have been trying to fox for a penalty by holding the player down, the defending player. So Joe Kilroy has it back for Brothers. They're just on their own quarterway. This is Dan Staines. Penalty Brothers. Again Souths inside the 5, notably Peter Jackson. Tim Dwyer to do the line kicking for Brothers. He's kicking towards the outer side of Lang Park with the breeze behind him. And the kick is a good one. Takes play to down to the South's quarterway. Jeff Burns. Tackle 12 metres out by Elias. Bailey unloads his pass to Smith. A long pass to Pat Shepardson, who loses it. Brad Sully is able to claim it for Souths. Magpies ball. Gary French almost collides with Brian Grant as he's chased by Shepardson. Elias to Meninga, storming down the blind side. Gets away from Jeff Burns, or does he? But it still gets his pass back to Peter Jackson. Jackson setting sail for the corner. Back in field to Gary Thompson. Couldn't hold it. Penalty Brothers. Reason being it was touched by Eddie Muller, who was offside. But Mel Meninga relishing his return to Lang Park today, proving as unstoppable as ever. A neat pass back to Peter Jackson. Jackson's pass back in field wasn't held by Gary Thompson, and then Eddie Muller came in from an offside position to dive on it. The reason for the penalty. Only some 15 seconds remaining until the break. Shepardson drives it deep. Taken well by David Burke. Tackle by Darren Morris. Paul Wallace, the acting halfback. They go to ground with the ball, so a good quarter for Souths against the breeze. The Magpies go into the break leading by 6 points to 2, and we'll be back to Lang Park in just a moment. So welcome back to Lang Park, where the quarter time score, Souths running against a fairly stiff breeze, lead Brothers by 6 points to 2, scrums to Brothers by 3 to 1, tight heads are 1 apiece. The penalties go to Souths by 4 to 3. Good quarter for South's Rod, and I think pleasing from a Queensland point of view is Mel Meninga instantly back to top form.
Yes, he certainly is playing well today. He's been able to run the ball very well, and he's taken a different role as we've seen him play in England as well. He's unloading the ball a lot more than he was last year, and he certainly is back to form, very much needed by the Queensland side and by South as well.
Well, Meninga having a few words to South trainers. I'm sure happy with his debut to Lang Park for this season. Well, before the game, Cole Thompson was able to speak with one captain and another player who's out injured. First of all, the brothers' captain, Pat Shepherdson.
Pat, this is a very important game for brothers today. Is there any special tactics to beat South?
Well, Cole, it's very vital, for us to win it. We're just going to go out there and throw the ball around. Struddy wants us to throw the ball around and just see if we can control the ball. That's all we're going to do.
Right, mate, it looks like it's going to be another wet game, and the last time you met South, it was raining.
Yeah, it was poured that night. I hope it's not going to be as wet today as it was that night, though, hopefully.
But you feel you can win it today?
I think so, yeah, mate. Hopefully. We're pretty confident. Not overconfident, but I think we'll win it, yeah.
Pat Shepherdson. Well, it looks as though the weather is going to be with us. That storm, for a short while during the Wynnum Manly East game, was going to come right across Lang Park. Seemed to have moved around the ground, thank goodness. We didn't get all that much rain from it. Well, in the South's lineup, in fact, there's the colour weather radar, and you can see the two storm cells have passed around Lang Park, one going now over the Redcliffe area to the north and the other to the south, around south of Beenleigh. And it's beautiful conditions again at Lang Park at the moment. Well, South's halfback for this season has been Wayne Cullen. He was injured in Ayr last weekend against North Queensland, and Cole Thompson spoke to him before the match.
Wayne, you must be very disappointed now that you're injured and you won't be playing out there today. How do you think Souths are going to go against brothers?
Yes, Cole, I'm disappointed. Anyone likes to be out there on a Sunday, but I think the boys got it together today. Brad's a good replacement. He won't do the side any harm, and I think we'll come up with a win for sure.
Wayne, got any special tactics out there today? The rain's coming down again. It looks like another wet game.
Oh, yeah, well, I suppose Mark and big blokes like that, they'll revel in it today if the rain keeps up. But no special plan, just go out there and win.
Wayne Cullen, as we said, fortunately the rain hasn't kept up. It was raining just before the match, but it ceased in fine conditions at the moment. For the start of the second quarter, with South's leading brothers by 6 points to 2. Gary French to restart play. Tim Dwyer, the brothers' fullback, brings it back to his own quarterway. Trevor Bailey onto Foster. Short pass for Pat Shepherdson. Good tackle, though, by Brad Sully. Jim Heary. This is Trevor Smith. Shepherdson to Foster. Took that in well. And then hit the deck as he was taken by Mel Meninga. Shepherdson kicks. Gary Thompson turning around for it. Leaves it, though, for fullback David Burke. Burke, good tackle, ball and all by Rob Grogan. Gary Thompson goes to the blind side, tackled by Darren Morris. This is Sully. Eddie Muller tackle just out from his own quarterway. Let's see what the coaches had to say at the break. Here's Cole Thompson.
Want South guys to tighten up their defence. They must be prepared to work harder in defence. Don't bunch up too much. Hold on to those passes and keep working the ball. Struddy wants the 6 forwards to run with the ball, and they must work harder in defence.
Thank you, Cole. Brothers in possession through Joe Kilroy. 15 metres into South's territory is where he'll play the ball. Bailey away to Shepherdson. Penalty goes to Brothers, and again South's inside the 5 out wide. Meninga, Tronk, the players that referee Brian Grant indicated. So Pat Shepherdson will kick for goal. He's just outside the South's quarterway. As he lines up this kick, let's go down to the sideline for a comment from Bruce Aston.
Well, John, if I was in Brothers' shoes, I think I'd be using the breeze a lot more than what they have done. They've kicked in general play, but I think they have to kick for distance to keep South in their own quarter. And the other thing that's happening on both sides, mistakes are costing both sides dearly here. They're dropping the ball, they're standing offside, especially on first and second tackles where they need to hold the ball, consolidate their play, and both sides aren't doing that as yet.
Thanks, Bruce. Pat Shepardson virtually in front. Kicks on its way. Breeze behind it. And it's over. So it's 2 points the difference. South's leading Brothers by 6 points to 4. South's bringing it back for the restart. And this time it'll be Mel Meninga to take the kick off. Tim Dwyer waits for it, takes it comfortably. You're watching the NEC Big Game, live from Lang Park, the second semi-final of the Winfield State League. Penalty Brothers. South's trying to reef the ball away from the tackled player. Let's have a look at that on our NEC replay. Mel Meninga not really involved in the tackle, just going in to try and take the ball from Tim Dwyer and was penalised for it. Brothers finding touch just short of halfway.
The South really can't afford to make those sort of mistakes and concede ground to Brothers. A very strong breeze behind the Brothers team. A kicker like Pat Shepardson can always gain very good ground.
This is Dan Staines, caught front on by Muller and put to ground with the aid of Meninga. Foster to Gary Smith. Tackled by Elias and Carr. Foster to Trevor Smith. Almost up to the South's quarterway. Back to Trevor Bailey. Final tackle coming up for Brothers. Foster will wait for it and put it into the air. David Burke coming across for Souths. Takes it well. Caught from behind by Pat Shepardson. Put to ground 15 metres out from his own try line. Meninga goes from dummy half. Loses the ball as well. Tried to slip that pass away to Gary Thompson. Brothers come up with it. Dan Staines played it. Brothers are inside the South's quarterway. This is Heary. Chris Roach. Good tackle by John Elias. Bailey gives it back to Staines. Staines trying to run himself. Underneath him got Brad Sully. Bailey away to Shepardson. Shepardson trying to break free of French's tackle, turned it back around the corner to Trevor Smith. Again, Brothers on the last tackle. They're 8 metres from scoring. Ross Strudwick, the Brothers coach, watching anxiously as Henry Foster puts it into the air. It hits the upright, bounces back into the field of play. Taken again by Henry Foster. He's over the line. That's a try. I think you'll find the referee will play it to Henry Foster. It is Henry Foster who comes up with it. And Brothers will probably say that was planned. Hit the upright. And Foster gets the rebound. I tell you what, if Wally Lewis had a kick that, they would have said it was planned, so I guess Brothers can say it was.
Yeah, it's very good work for Brothers. Henry Foster puts the ball up. A bit of luck going his way. Ball hits the upright and the luck of the bounce, I think, right there. But certainly they've been working hard for a try. And Henry Foster is the player that was there on the spot.
Well, you probably have to have luck to win any game, unless you're an exceptionally good side like Wynnum Manly. And that's the sort of luck that Brothers would have been wanting. 8 points to 6. Brothers now lead, and Shepardson with the conversion attempt just to the right-hand side of the upright. The kick is over, so Brothers lead by 10 points to 6. And it could really catch a side off guard when the bomb goes into the air and does hit the upright. As one happened in Sydney match just In the last couple of weeks, I remember that the attacking side scored off. There was that game, the State of Origin match last year in Sydney. The ball hit the crossbar. And, of course, it just catches the defensive side. They're not expecting it. And just that split second, and that's all it takes to have a try scored against you.
Well, it certainly does. It totally destroys the defensive side plan, how to cope with that bomb. And once the ball hits those uprights, it can go anywhere. That's exactly what happened then.
So Brothers leading by 10 points to 6. Chris Roach handing it back to Trevor Bailey. Brothers keeping it alive. Trevor Smith just short of halfway is tackled by Eddie Muller. Staines to Shepperton. The kick comes off Mark Meskel. Chris Roach is back to retrieve. The tackle count restarts. Gary Smith runs from dummy half. Met in a solid tackle by Scott Tronk with Sully coming over the top. Jim Heary, head down, charging towards halfway. Gets over the halfway mark with a solid run. Little Gary French is the tackler. Pat Shepperton picked into the air and dumped by the halves. French and Sully made to lose the ball. Meskel has it. South's in possession. Meninga. Scott Tronk. Back to Meninga. On halfway, he throws a pass which Muller scooped up. Scott Tronk away to Peter Jackson. Feeds it back in field to Gary Thompson. Out wide to Elias, but it went forward. Just in back play, Mel Meninga has taken a long time to get up from that tackle. He's walking back now, but he looked for a moment that he'd injured his knee. And also there's another Souths player gone down injured. Peter Jackson it is, their centre. Just receiving attention. Yes, Meninga took quite a while to get to his feet, and he was just holding on to his knee, and of course that'd be the last thing Queensland would need. But he's okay, thank goodness. Peter Jackson just hitting the ground fairly hard after he was dumped by Tim Dwyer as he gave that pass back in field. He's okay. A shambles of a scrum. Brothers will get the differential penalty. Probably there could have been a differential penalty for about 1,001 reasons from that scrum. Brian Grant eventually decided to make it for the halfback Brad Sully not retiring.
Some very important players on the Brothers side today that can control their ability to win this game. Those players are Pat Shepperton and Henry Foster, Tim Dwyer and Joe Kilroy. If all those players have very good games, I'm sure the Brothers will be a big chance of winning this game.
So Kilroy in front of a packed Frank Burke grandstand, an exceptionally good crowd today as Kilroy makes a bust. Gets to the quarterway, still running. Kilroy trying to pop the pass over the top. It went to ground and Gary French has it. French to play it 10 metres from his own line. Norm Carr. Muller gives it across to Sully, now on to Scott Tronk. Tronk looking for a bust. Tackled by Trevor Bailey, who was the first to take him to ground, and then Jim Heary came over the top. Eddie Muller again, making some 5 metres from dummy half. French uses the kick, turns Tim Dwyer around. He has it inside his own quarter wide. Pat Shepperton with some room to move. Running hard. His pass away to Rob Grogan. Well tackled though by Gary Thompson. Dan Staines. Staines getting over halfway. He's 10 metres into South's territory. Just a few gaps starting to appear in the last few minutes in this South's defensive lineup. Gary Smith charging straight up the centre to be tackled by Eddie Muller. Jim Heary. Heary to the quarterway. Final tackle coming up for Brothers. They'll set themselves for the bomb. Henry Foster takes it. Into the air it goes. The breeze is getting behind that though, and it's far too deep. So a wasted kick by Brothers, and I'm sure Foster very disappointed with that kick. But this breeze is fairly strong and has been all afternoon, which players have to allow for. So Souths with the tap restart.
Yes, it might pay Brothers to vary their kicking game and just put some rubber kicks through it, some little chips over the top, rather than the high ball, which is caught by the wind.
And this time Brothers penalised for reefing the ball away from a tackled player. Peter Jackson's kick for touch. Taken back a little bit by the breeze. It found touch. 20 metres on his own side of halfway to Mark Meskel on the blind side. Played forward by Meskel. Makes another 5 metres. The tackler is Gary Smith, aided by Chris Roach. Carr. French, a short pass for David Burke. On the blind side, Sully to Meninga. Misses out Jackson. Tries to give it to Gary Thompson, who didn't expect it, knocked on. 7.5 minutes remaining until half-time. Brothers leading in our NEC big game by 10 points to 6. The winner to meet winner Manly, who defeated Easts by 40 points to 6 in the early match this afternoon. Henry Foster feeds a Brothers scrum win. Immediately goes to the blind side, gets his pass to Jeff Burns, and it went forward. Well, the movement was on. Souths were threadbare on the blind side, and Foster knew it. Here it is again on our NEC replay, and just fractionally forward, but that was enough for referee Brian Grant to recall it. Sully feeds the scrum. Souths win it to Gary French. Chased and caught by his opposite number, Pat Shepherdson. John Elias running hard. Gives it back well to Norm Carr. Dummy half is Hubie Abbott. To the blind side he goes. They're a few metres short of halfway. Souths, Muller to French, then to Jackson. Has Meskel running hard out wide. Still going, Mark Meskel. He bumped away from Dan Staines, but couldn't make all that much more ground before he was eventually held. French to kick. Jeff Burns waits for it for Brothers. Now takes it. Starts to run. He's gone 5 metres, so the defence are able to claim him, and it's Peter Jackson who takes the tap. Penalty goes to Brothers. Again for interfering with the tackled player and trying to reef the ball away from him, indicates Brian Grant. Which is something that referees have been told to crack down on this season. Mel Meninga, the penalised player. Perhaps the referees in England, Rod, haven't been told as yet that
no,
that's a no-no.
Yeah, something very common in the English league, as the player is stolen from the player after he's been tackled, and that's pretty common over there.
Trevor Bailey to Jim Heary. Heary gets his pass back. Bailey picked it up on the bounce, immediately turned it away. Trevor Smith is inside the quarterway. Foster misses out Shepherdson to Gary Smith. Final tackle coming up for Brothers. Shepherdson to put it into the air. Again, David Burke waits for it. Into the end goal. Burke takes it. Hit immediately. Knocked over by Tim Dwyer following the kick through. So Souths to drop out from their goal mouth. Getting rather cloudy again at Lang Park. Well, hopefully the rain will stay away. As Meninga's kick to Darren Morris. Morris running it back towards South's quarter. Chased by Abbott and put to ground right on the quarterway. Pat Shepherdson. Bailey, the dummy half, to Joe Kilroy, who's come across from the right wing, gives his pass away to Jeff Burns. Burns trying to sneak around the defence of Gary French. Meninga comes in to help his 5'8". Chris Roach. Brothers are 15 metres out from the Souths line. Bailey Through Foster onto Shepherdson. Steps, tries to get past Muller. Again, Brothers on the final tackle, and we'll wait for the bomb. Bailey gives it across to Henry Foster. There it goes. Once again, Burke waits for it. This is a better bomb. Burke takes it, but this time Brothers are ruled to be offside. Gary Smith, the penalised player, said to have been in front of the kicker. There's the bomb by Foster. Dwyer and Gary Smith coming through after it. And Gary Smith, the player just behind Tim Dwyer, was the player that was ruled to have been offside. Meanwhile, over on the touchline, we have a South's injured player, Norm Carr. He's down receiving some attention. Cole Thompson has a report.
Carr off and Ash Lumley replace him.
Right, there he is, the South's captain. Norm Carr replaced by Ash Lumbey. Brothers back inside the quarterway again. This is Jim Heary. Heary is only 12 metres out from scoring. Bailey gives his pass away to Chris Roach. Back to Bailey. A bouncing pass for Dan Staines. Chased by Meskel. He got through the gap. Brilliantly picked up by Rob Grogan going for the line. He'll get inside the South's defence and score. Good try by Rob Grogan, but the player who did the lead up to it was Dan Staines, keeping that movement alive. Grogan goes in to score a vital try just 2 minutes before half-time. Here it is again. Dan Staines got away from Meskel, and then a lovely pass around the corner to Rob Grogan, who dragged himself through the attempted tackle of Gary Thompson to score the try.
Well, certainly it's very good work by Dan Staines. The South's defence hasn't been able to handle the pressure that's been applied to them in the last few minutes. There's been bombs, and now they decided to run this ball. Dan Staines has found the gap and put Robert Grogan through the gap, and went over for a very sound try.
Rob Grogan, perhaps an underrated player in the Brothers lineup. Hasn't had many opportunities as far as representative football is concerned, but he's a player that you talk to any of the opposing players, Rod, and they always have a very high opinion of him.
Yeah, certainly, he certainly has a lot of ability, Robert Grogan. He's always there. He always seems to come up with 1 or 2 tries in the game also, so he's always backing up. He's always Johnny on the spot, and that's always a mark of a very good player.
Norm Carr still lying down there on the touchline in some pain and receiving attention from the South's trainer and club doctor. As Pat Shepherdson lines up this kick. On its way, looks good, flags are raised, 16-6 it is, inside the last minute before half-time, and that's probably the lead that Brothers were looking for. With this breeze, which has aided them in the first half, I think it's fair to say, Rod, it's somewhere around a 10-point breeze.
Yes, well, it certainly is. I was going to say that earlier, that it appeared to be about a 10-point breeze, and Brothers will have to have about a 10-point margin to go into the second, third and fourth quarters if they are going to stay in front of South in this game. And right now they are leading by exactly 10 points.
So only 15 seconds remaining until the half-time break. Joe Kilroy losing the ball. Knocked on, says the referee, no advantage. Norm Carr, who's suffering from a back injury, just leaving the field. Good at least that he's been able to walk off himself, because he was lying on the sideline in a lot of pain. So it's half-time at Lang Park in our second NEC big game of the afternoon, and Brothers lead Souths by 16 points to 6. Brothers 16, South 6 at half-time, and we'll return to Lang Park in just a moment. Welcome back to Lang Park. As we said, a tremendous crowd here today, and one of the promotional activities is a kicking competition between 4 of the great kickers of Brisbane football over the years. That fellow in the North's jersey about to line up this attempted kick is Peter Lobergeiger, the former North's great. And next to him, a fellow who I guess you could have to say was just a goal-scoring marvel in his day. One of the real legends of Brisbane Rugby League, Norm Pope. The other two kickers, the one lining up his kick at the moment is the boot from Easts, Howard Fullerton, and Ian Douth, the former Great Brothers point scorer. All four of them, their time, were the leading point scorers of the Brisbane competition. And we might just wait and have a look at Norm Pope, because I suppose if you look back on the kickers in the Brisbane competition, he still holds the record, Norm Pope, for the most number of points in a season. There's the kick by him. Oh, hit the upright again. Well, he hasn't lost it, Norm Pope. What a great player he was. A Valley stalwart, coached Wests for a couple of years, but will always be known as one of the greatest of the Valley diehards. Well, the half-time score, and Brothers getting themselves right back into the match at half-time by leading Souths by 16 points to 6. Brothers scoring 14 points to 0 in the second quarter of that game. 16-6, is that a big enough lead for Brothers to be able to hang on, Rob?
I don't really know. It's pretty hard to say, because they had a very strong breeze behind them in the first half, and depends on how South use that in the second half. If South can come back and use that breeze to the same effect that Brothers did, maybe it's not enough points to win.
And the rain clouds still around Lang Park at the moment. In fact, there's the colour weather radar, and you can see how that has changed virtually in the last 25 minutes or so. And a lot of rain activity now moving in across the Brisbane area. And there's the view around Lang Park. That, in fact, is looking towards the north. And most of the rain activity is coming from the southerly direction, so that cloud cover has come right across the ground. And we could be in for some rain during the third and fourth quarters as our camera pans right around. That's towards the southeast. And a lot of rain activity in the Brisbane area. One of the players that has featured very prominently for Souths during this season has been Mark Meskel, the Souths prop forward. We might have a look at the Kentucky Fried Chicken profile now of Mark Meskel. In fact, our country viewers, we might just hold that for a moment. We'll have it for you very shortly. Our country viewers, we might go to a commercial break, and we'll have you back to Lang Park in just a moment. And welcome to our viewers through QTQ Channel 9 in Brisbane to our live coverage now of the NEC Big Game from Lang Park between Brothers and Souths, with Brothers leading at the half-time break by 16 points to 6. They've had the benefit of a strong breeze during the first and second quarters. At quarter time, in fact, Souths led by 6-2, but Brothers scored 14 points to 0 in the second quarter. And it's a 16-6, a 10-point lead. Rod, is that a big enough lead, do you think? Is the breeze a 10-point breeze?
Well, the breeze has dropped right now, so maybe South won't get the advantage that Brothers had in the first two quarters. The breeze was certainly a help to Brothers to get their 16 points to 6 in front at half-time. But the breeze has dropped right off now, and South might find it a little bit difficult to peak back that lead.
Of course, the earlier game this afternoon won so very convincingly by Wynnum Manly. They defeated Easts by 40 points to 6. And Wynnum, particularly in the third quarter, they scored 20 points in that quarter when they really let the brakes off. It was Wynnum Manly at their best, and I would think that whoever plays Wynnum Manly are going to be at long odds to be able to beat them. As we welcome back our country viewers to Lang Park, we might at this stage have a look at the Kentucky Fried Chicken profile of one of the form players in the Brisbane competition this year. It's Souths prop forward Mark Meskel. On 2 occasions he's taken out our Canterbury Man of the Match awards. His hometown, in fact, was Lismore in New South Wales, but he started his football up on the Downs in the Warwick area. Originally, when he came to Brisbane, he played with the Valleys Club. Before he transferred over to Souths, he played for Queensland in the under-18s back in 1979. Only 24 years of age, and as Wayne Bennett said in our big game preview this weekend, he doesn't feel at this stage that Mark Meskel is ready for representative football. But Wayne Bennett is firmly of the opinion, Rod, that come this time next year, Mark Meskel will definitely be a front runner for a State of Origin berth, and at the end of next year, he will be a leading contender for his place on the Kangaroo Tour.
Well, he certainly has the ability to go that far. He's showing all the potential right now, and if he can keep improving the way he has this year, I'm sure he will be a big chance for both those positions.
So the half-time score 16-6 in favour of Brothers. Who've been the players, Rod, that have impressed you so far?
The players on the Brothers side, Henry Foster and Pat Shepperson have really controlled most of the play, as well as Joe Kilroy and Tim Dwyer have had a lot to do with the game. In the south side, Mel Meninga has had a lot to do. Also, Mark Mesler, as you've just seen, and Scott Tronk have been working very hard as well.
One player you mentioned is Tim Dwyer, who's the brothers' fullback, another one of the informed players in Brisbane. A Kentucky Fried Chicken profile of Tim Dwyer shows that he's a Sunshine Coast boy, coming from his hometown of Caloundra, and he represented Australia in the under-18s back in 1981, before going on to represent Wide Bay and Queensland country in 1982, before coming down to Brothers. And I would think when Colin Scott gets to the end of his career, at the moment, the heir apparent to his birth would be Tim Dwyer from Brothers. Let's go down to the touchline now and hear a report from Bruce Aston.
Thanks, John. Brothers have certainly got a very commanding lead at half-time break. If South are going to get back into this game, I think Bennett has to put a few bombs into some of the South players. In particular, Mark Meskel, Scott Tronk and a few others. They just aren't playing the football that we've expected to play. They really have to get their act together. They have to get up in defence and hit hard and hit often, and their attack, they have to stop making silly mistakes and get on with the game.
Right, thank you, Bruce. Well, fortunately, so far, we've only had a light sprinkling of rain here at Lang Park, and that came just near the break of the between games. That storm cloud activity has moved right around the ground. We missed the earlier storm, but right at the moment, it's got very cloudy at Lang Park, and it wouldn't surprise if we get some rain during the third and fourth quarters. There's the view looking towards the northerly direction, and there's our colour weather radar for the benefit of our Brisbane viewers, which shows that most of the storm activity, which built up earlier in the day down around the Rosewood area, has split and moved to the north and south of Brisbane, one going over the Redcliffe area and the other down around Beenleigh. But we're still getting a lot of cloud cover, and it is indeed getting quite dark here at Lang Park. So the third and fourth quarters, we could see a fair amount of rain. Rod, what would you think South's tactics would be? Just looking at those flags, the breeze has definitely died down. There's still a breeze coming from the north, which will favour Souths in the third and fourth quarters, but what would you think their tactics would be?
I'd say South will try and play the game as much as they possibly can in Brothers' territory and try and apply a bit of pressure on them and force them into some mistakes and try and capitalise on those.
Referee Brian Grant and his touch judges Wayne Giebel and George Long coming back onto the field, and behind them come the South side.
Right soon.
South's back onto the field. Wouldn't surprise, in fact, in these conditions that we might see the floodlights turned on soon. Just looking across from our broadcast position in the new grandstand, some of the lights in the old Frank Burke stand are really standing out, and that's always a good indication and that it's getting quite dark. Now, light rain, in fact, just starting to fall. Brothers coming back onto the field have made one change. Johnny Tapp has come on, and he's replaced Brothers centre Darren Morris. We'll wait and see, in fact, whether there has been a reshuffle in the Brothers lineup, but the change that's been made, Johnny Tapp on, and the replacement is for Darren Morris. Brian Grant, the referee for this afternoon's second semi-final. Let's go down to Cole Thompson for a report from the touchline.
Well, John, you've got the changes there, mate, but also I spoke with the South doctor, Randy Jackson, to tell me that Norm Carr has an injury in his lower back, a bit of bruising in the lower back, and the new leader for South will be Ash Lumby.
Thanks, Cole. Ash Lumby taking over the captaincy of Souths. He started as a reserve in this game. He replaced Norm Carr and now finds himself as captain. As the rain starts coming down, and Brothers and Souths met in the very first game of this year's Winfield State League. It was played in atrocious conditions with pelting rain throughout almost the entire match. We might be in for a repeat dose during the concluding stages of this game today. Ash Lumby on the blind side, tackle on his own quarter away by the former Rugby Union Wallaby International Chris Roach. You're watching the NEC Big Game. It's coming to you live from Lang Park. A reminder for our Brisbane viewers that on Wednesday night, the final of the Winfield State League between Wynnum Manly and the winner of this match to be seen live on Channel 9, the entire game with kick-off at 8:30. That's on this coming Wednesday night.
If this rain does get any heavier and does control this game, I think that 16-point lead or 10-point lead the Brothers do have over South will be enough in very heavy conditions.
Joe Kilroy taken front on by John Elias. Lost the ball as well. A knock on, rules referee Brian Grant. In the earlier game today, our man of the match received the Canterbury Award, was Brett French. He receives the outfit of Canterbury Leisure Wear. We gave him 4 points. 2 points we gave to Bob Lindner and 1 point to Greg Dowling. And we'll tell you in just a few moments how the players line up at the moment for the Winfield Player of the City series. Souths on the Brothers quarter wide. Sully away to French. This is Gary Thompson. Now to Peter Jackson. Jackson storming through a gap. Coming towards Tim Dwyer. Feeds it back in field to Gary Thompson. And Thompson goes in to score. A very, very neat Souths try. And that's exactly the start of the third quarter that the Magpies wanted. Gary Thompson, who scored 2 tries against Souths in the first Winfield State League game in the rain, and scores a vital try for them coming off a pass from Peter Jackson.
Very good work by Peter Jackson to be able to go through the gap there. You can see just here right now how he accelerates through that gap and looks back on the inside for Thompson, and gives him a very clear pass and give him a straight go at the line and dives over for the try.
Thompson scoring right underneath the post to make it 16-10 with a kick to come. Neat work by Peter Jackson, a good run, and then a well-executed pass. So Gary French lining up this kick as this rain now starts to get heavier. The kick is successful. French doing the kicking. Mel Meninga wasn't called upon to do the kicking today. He's been playing in the second row, in fact. So 16-12 it is. And just going back to our Canterbury Player of the Series, after 4 points in the first game to Brett French, 2 to Bob Lindner and 1 to Greg Dowling, Trevor Gilmeister from Norths is still leading. He's out there on 14 and has to hope that he can cling to that lead now that Norths are out of the running. Ian French remains on 11. Greg Dowling moved up to 9. And the other players from this match that can either catch or pass Gilmeister are Mark Meskel, Tim Dwyer and Eddie Muller all on 8, and Trevor Bailey who's on 6. And the rain now starting to pelt down. Souths in possession just out from their own quarterway.
Just going back to that try that was just scored by Gary Thompson. It was very good work by Gary Thompson as well, because he came from the other side of the field on his wing position to come right across the field and link up with Peter Jackson. So he's a very good winger, Gary Thompson.
Jeff Burns tackled 8 metres on his own side of halfway. Gary Smith being put to ground. The tackler was Hubie Abbott. This is Trevor Smith, formerly from Mackay in North Queensland, and then the last couple of seasons with the Canberra Raiders. Gary Smith again on the blind side. Meskel comes across to get him, so too does Ash Lumbey. Foster looking for a long pass out wide to Rob Grogan. Grogan trying to get around Peter Jackson. His pass away to Tim Dwyer, trying to straighten up the point of the attack. Final tackle coming up for Brothers. They're about 10 metres short of the Souths quarterway. Shepherdson sets himself for the kick. High into the air it goes, sending fullback David Burke back for it. He drops it. Knockback, says the referee. And I think pretty lucky to get away with that one. This is Mel Meninga. Meninga on his own quarterway. And that rain, driven by that northerly wind, really teeming down at Lang Park as Mark Meskel is tackled. Brad Sully. Up the centre he goes. His pass to John Elias. Sully is the acting halfback. Back to Eddie Muller, then to Gary French. Kicking with the breeze. And a penalty. Goes to Brothers. And the penalty is going to be against Hubie Abbott. Well, he must have been offside, and I think the referee He must have done something in back play, I think. We might have a look at that again on our NEC replay. There it is from behind. There's the kick now. That's Hubie Abbott. Well, he obviously must have done something in back play. A player injured. We might just go down to Bruce Astill, who had a better view of that last incident. Here it is again. Trevor Smith. On to Dan Stones. And Brothers are up inside the quarter-wide. So Brothers are only 10 metres out as it comes back to Dan Staines. Pass is knocked to ground by Hubie Abbott. The referee rules there was a knock on. Well, I think that came off Hubie Abbott. Scrum to pack down, only 12 metres out from the line, fed by Brad Sully. Won by Souths as the rain continues to pelt down. Brothers leading by 16 to 12. Eddie Muller goes from dummy half. Sully to Meninga. Back to Gary French. Looked to get his kick away. Couldn't do so as he was chased and taken to ground in the tackle of Rob Grogan. Back to Sully. Sully kicking deep. Jeff Burns running it back infield from the wing. Slowed down by Abbott. The tackle completed by Gary Thompson. Johnny Tapp on as the replacement for Darren Morris at half-time. Trevor Bailey. Tackle by John Elias. Dan Staines working his way towards the quarterway. Bailey away to Henry Foster, chipping over the top. Shepherdson coming through after it. It'll be dived on by Ash Lumbey and a Souths ball. Eddie Muller to Hubie Abbott. And the Brothers' defence swarms on him to keep him back inside his own quarterway. David Burke, the fullback in the side, who replaced Gary Belcher at the start of this game. As the rain comes down and the floodlights turned on, Scott Tronk gets over the quarterway. Back to Gary French. His kick spilt by Jeff Burns. Tim Dwyer dives on it. Referee rules it came off his head. And of course, for a knock on, it had to touch his hand. So off his head, it's play on.
I respect South when they do have possession of the ball to put the ball downfield more than they are right now. They're not really getting enough distance with that. And I'm a bit surprised that Melvin Inger's not doing the kicking.
Henry Foster trying to work his way up the centre of the ruck, has to play the ball. Pat Shepherdson out wide for Rob Grogan. Grogan confronted by Meninga. Can't get around him. They're 15 metres on south side of halfway. Shepherdson's kick is a very high one. In fact, it goes almost straight up in the air from where he kicked it. Lost by Brothers. And we'll have a knock on both ways. Rain just easing off slightly as Brad Sully will feed the scrum. And a penalty to Souths. Against the Brothers pack, Souths get the differential penalty. Peter Jackson to take the line kick. In front of an extremely big crowd at Lang Park today. It's been a top promotion by the Queensland Rugby League. Their Dollar Day with Radio 4BC. And a very big crowd, probably the biggest of the season. Tap free. Across field to Gary French. From the dummy half goes Ash Lumbey, crashing towards the brothers' quarter wide. He'll play the ball back to Eddie Muller. Then to Sully. Turn back in field for Peter Jackson and on to Meninga, storming through into the quarter way. His pass back to Ash Lumbey. They're 15 metres out. Eddie Muller. A long pass for Gary French, then to Meskel. Jackson can't take it. Pat Shepherdson comes through after it, trying to take the intercept, but knocks on. And this scrum for the brothers knock on is on their own quarter way. Brad Sully to feed this scrum. South's ball. French. This is Peter Jackson. Jackson again stepping. He set up the last try, Peter Jackson, and he almost does it again. Gary Thompson on the blind side, dropped by John Elias, and a brothers ball. Ball to be played back by Chris Roach. Joe Kilroy gets to the quarter way. Jim Heary. Bailey, but brothers will get a penalty. As the rain eases off, thank goodness. It's just enough to make that surface fairly slippery. As brothers find touch a few metres short of half wide. Trevor Smith takes the tap. Chris Roach. Heavily tackled by Elias and Tronk. This is Dan Staines. Caught by Lumbey, not effectively held. Slipped his pass back to Trevor Bailey. Wrapped up ball and all by Mark Meskel. Shepherdson. Almost to the South's quarter wide. Henry Foster. Holding the pass up for Dan Staines. Final tackle coming up for brothers. Foster again, into the air. David Burke drops back for it, takes it right underneath his own goal. Good take by David Burke. Eddie Muller goes from dummy half.
There's been a fair bit of pressure put on young David Burke today, and he's been able to handle it very well. He's showing a lot of maturity.
South's inside their own quarter wide. Muller again on the blind side. Floats his pass out for Hubie Abbott. French. And they're the tactics. Play it in brothers' territory. Tim Dwyer can't take it cleanly and knock backwards. Crossfield, he starts to run and hit in a solid tackle. Lost the ball, and who could blame him? The referee ruling it was a knock on. Here it is again, in a solid tackle by Scott Tronk and Peter Jackson. And the ball going absolutely nowhere near being knocked on. So the referee squares up by giving brothers a penalty.
Yes, very good hit by young Scott Tronk. He really put his all into that tackle on Tim Dwyer, and I'm sure Tim felt it as well.
So Dwyer kicks for touch and finds it just short of halfway. Kilroy takes the tap, trying to break away from Mark Meskel, eventually thrown to ground by the jersey. Foster to Jim Heary. Brothers leading by 16 to 12. Just over 4 minutes away from three-quarter time. This is Chris Roach. Shepherdson out to Foster, putting Foster through a slight break. He gets to the quarterway. Tackled by his opposite number, Brad Sully.
A few gaps appearing in the South's defence.
Dan Staines with the final tackle now coming up for Brothers. They'll set themselves again for the bomb, no doubt. Foster it is. David Burke up for it, takes it brilliantly. A player that South's coach Wayne Bennett has a very big opinion of. He's been kept in the lower grades by Gary Belcher. But he's a talented player, young David Burke. And Ash Lumbey making a mistake, knocking on. So this scrum is 10 metres out from South's line. Brothers feed to the scrum. An important scrum, this one.
Unusual situation here. South have the wind behind them, but Brothers are doing all the bombing, and it's very unusual.
Joe Kilroy on the blind side. Well tackled by Paul Wallace. Bailey gives his pass to Gary Smith. Tackled by Elias, 5 metres from the line. Bailey again. Dan Staines is held on to and driven back by the South's defence. Out wide to Pat Shepherdson, crashing over, and he's in right next to the post. The try that Brothers wanted and the one that Souths didn't want. Under 3 minutes remaining till three-quarter time, and Shepherdson scores next to the upright, and virtually it had to come because Brothers have had all the pressure on over the last 10 minutes.
He certainly has. Very well hit by young Trevor Bailey as well. He unloads the ball, Pat Shepherdson there, but the South defence had to crack. There's been a fair bit of pressure on those players for the last 5 or 6 minutes, and the Brothers attacking machine just kept working away at it, and finally end up with a very sound try to Pat Shepherdson.
So after Souths had got back into the game, right at the start of the third quarter, Brothers hit back with a late try in this quarter to take them to a 20 points to 12 lead. And Shepherdson, with his kick just next to the upright, should make it 22 points to 12. And even though that rain has stopped, the ball itself is greasy. Just that top surface of Lang Park is greasy, and that makes handling difficult. So Souths have got a job in front of them to come back, as Shepherdson adds the extras, and Brothers lead by 22 points to 12.
I'm very surprised if South had come back now. Brothers appear to be well in control of this game and going away.
So Meninga, and like you, Rod, I'm surprised that Meninga hasn't been used more with his kicking game, particularly with that breeze to play the game down in Brothers territory. The reverse has happened.
Yes, well, South are kicking, but they're using players like Gary French, who really haven't got the power to kick the ball right downfield like Mel Meninga has, and that's very surprising that they aren't using him as their down the field kicker.
I was also a little surprised that Gary French was used as the goal kicker for Souths. But Meninga, particularly a couple of the easy ones, would have been a good confidence booster for him. Of course, he's going to be Queensland's kicker without much doubt for the first State of Origin game. Henry Foster making a jinking little run. Souths must hang on here. They can't afford to let Brothers score any more points before three-quarter time, which is just 43 seconds away. Pat Shepherdson. Downfield, and David Burke runs it out, gives it away to Paul Wallace. He's being chased by Johnny Tapp, one of the quickest forwards in the business, and Tapp gets him. Jackson missed by Hebe Abbott. Was picked up by Paul Wallace, who's bundled into touch. So this scrum, the pack just inside South's territory. Won by Brothers. Shepherdson immediately drives it deep, turning Wallace around. Kilroy's coming through quickly after it. Gary Thompson coming across as well and knocks it dead. Gary Thompson knocking the ball dead, saving the day for the Magpies, and that's three-quarter time. And Brothers leading at the break by 22 points to 12 in our NEC big game. Brothers 22, Souths 12, and we'll return to Lang Park in just a moment.
Brothers leading 51
Sorry? 2.5 minutes. Okay, mate.
Here we go. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to Lang Park with a three-quarter time score. Brothers leading by 22-12. Scrums are 6-5 to Brothers. The tight heads are 1 apiece, and the penalties to Brothers by 10-7. Rod, our statistician Andy Giorgio has brought up an interesting point. At half-time, the kicks in general play, Brothers 12 and Souths 4. But in the third quarter, at three-quarter time, it's Brothers 19, Souths 8, which means that against the breeze, Brothers kicked 7 times to Souths 4. And I just can't understand, as we said during that quarter, why Souths aren't kicking more, and particularly using Mel Meninga, who can drive it so much deeper than anybody else in the Souths lineup.
Well, certainly a very good point. The fact that Souths aren't taking advantage of the breeze, they do have it behind them. The breeze is still there, but they just aren't using it with any advantage at all. They're using kickers like Gary French, who really aren't getting the distance down the field that Mel Meninga could gain. And it surprises me as well that Brothers have taken the advantage of the breeze against them rather than Souths taking the advantage of the breeze with them. And it shows on the scoreboard as well. I think that's the reason why Souths are trailing Brothers by 22 points to 12.
Wayne Bennett, one of the best qualified coaches in the business, the Queensland State Director of Coaching, and he doesn't look all that impressed at the moment. And Cole Thompson standing there just behind the Souths huddle. He'll tell us into the final quarter what Wayne Bennett had to say. But 22 points to 12, it's going to be hard for Souths to come back. Let's go down to Bruce Astle on the touchline and see what Bruce's thoughts are of the game at three-quarter time.
Well, John, I think we'll see two different types of games here. Brothers will be consolidating their lead and just be rucking the ball up, where Souths will have to take their chances and spin the ball wide and so forth. I think Souths have to make some changes here. I think Meninga will have to move out in the centres. He's not doing the role that I think Wayne Bennett would be expecting of him in the forwards. I think Phelan will have to come back into the side somewhere because he is a strongman type player, and I think that's what Souths need at present.
All right, thanks very much, Bruce. So the hooter goes to start the final quarter of this semi-final with Brothers leading Souths by 22 points to 12. And in fact, as Bruce just said, he'd be making changes. Well, Souths, in fact, have made changes. They've made 2 of them. Gary Grenke has come on. He's going to replace Mark Meskel. And Chris Phelan, the Queensland State of Origin forward, former Parramatta player, before that a former Souths player, who's just come back from England, is on, and he's replaced John Elias. So they're the 2 changes. Souths making a bust out wide. Hubie Abbott tackled. With the 2 changes for Souths. Gary Grenke on in jersey 15. He's replaced Mark Meskel. And Chris Phelan in jersey 16 has replaced John Elias. And also in the Brothers lineup a change. Russell Klein is on. He's wearing jersey number 15, and he's replaced Jeff Burns. Russell Klein on for Jeff Burns in the Brothers lineup. So Souths needing a quick try. Peter Jackson, his pass away, out wide to Gary Thompson, back over the top to Peter Jackson, knocked on. In fact, the referee is going to play the advantage as Brothers come up with it. You're watching the NEC Big Game, live from Lang Park. Brothers leading by 22 points to 12. The winner of this match to go on and meet winner Manly in the final on next Wednesday night. Brothers get a penalty. Reminder too of our question for our NEC video recorder, our viewers competition. We wanted you to tell us this week the name of the team that won the very first Winfield State League, and that was back in 1982. They won't be winning it this year because they were beaten by Wynnum Manly in the earlier game this afternoon. If you know their name, write it on the back of an envelope along with your own name and address and send it to the NEC Big Game. Care of Channel 9, GPO Box 999, Brisbane 4001. And we'll have the draw for that competition in our Big Game preview next weekend. The team that won the very first Winfield State League in 1982, beaten by Wynnum Manly this afternoon.
I'd be very surprised if either of these 2 players that are replacements on the south side, Gary Grenke and Chris Phelan, can make any difference to the side at all, because neither of those players are match winners. They're both very hard workers and very sound players, but not match winners.
Gary Thompson picking up pass, heading it over the top to Eddie Muller. The pass has now gone to ground and Brothers will pick it up. And that's where they're dangerous out wide with Peter Jackson, who's having a fine game. If they're going to win it, that looks to be the area that Souths can do it. So Joe Kilroy to play it just inside his own quarterway. This is Johnny Tapp. Trevor Bailey is the acting halfback. Dan Staines charging straight up the centre. He's into the open spaces. He's looking for support. Fires it away to Trevor Bailey. Always backing up Bailey, and their Brothers take it back to almost the Souths quarterway. Out wide to Henry Foster. Feeds it away now to Trevor Smith, and he's thrown to ground inside the quarterway. Loses the ball, in fact. Gary Grinke will come up with it, a Souths ball. Eddie Muller just over his own quarterway. Meninga, the acting halfback, to Sully. To Meninga running around him. Can't unload as he's tipped into the deck by Dan Staines. Ash Lumbey from dummy half. Makes some 10 metres before he's caught. Muller, the dummy half, almost runs into Brian Grant. French has his kick knocked down by Russell Klein. Into touch it goes. And a replacement coming on. Let's hear from Cole Thompson.
John, number 11, Trevor Smith off, and number 16, Ray Baumber on.
In the Brothers lineup, Trevor Smith replaced in the front row by Ray Baumber. Scrum win to Souths. French, his pass out to Peter Jackson. Gets it away to David Burke. Juggled it and then held on to it as he was tackled by Tim Dwyer. They'll work the blind side again through Peter Jackson. Across field to Gary French, then to Lumbey. Tackled by Jim Heary. French. Again using the kick, driving it out towards the touchline. Russell Klein going back for it. Takes it on his own quarterway. Got away from the attempted tackle of Chris Phelan. Muller and Abbott, though, complete the defensive work for Souths. Ray Baumber, the replacement player, has just come on to replace Trevor Smith. Pat Shepherdson putting it downfield for Paul Wallace. Wallace running it back towards the halfway mark.
I think Souths are going to be a threat in this game now. They have to use the ball out wide a lot more than they are. They're showing glimpses of form out wide. They aren't using it enough. And Mel Meninga's out there and Peter Jackson. They just aren't using them enough at this stage of the game.
So Ash Lumbey tackled by Ray Baumber. 8 metres inside Brothers territory. Plays it forward. Makes about another 6 or 7 metres. Sully. His pass to Eddie Muller. Muller charging through a gap. Closed on him as Pat Shepherdson grabbed him from behind. Final tackle coming up. French elects to run it. Out to Mel Meninga. Meninga trying to storm through. His pass away to Hubie Abbott, to Gary Thompson, coming back in field away to Brad Sully, and that's where they'll score their points, Souths. If they're going to win it, they'll score it out wide. Brad Sully backing up beautifully on the inside, but again, fine work by Meninga and Gary Thompson to put Souths back into the running. Here it is again. Meninga chased by Foster. His pass to Abbott. Back inside it comes through Gary Thompson, and then to Brad Sully backing up down the centre and over for a fine Souths try. And Rod, that's where Souths can get back into the game. As you just said, it's out wide they're doing the damage.
Well, certainly the players out wide to be able to create havoc in the Brothers' defence. They haven't been using it all day. They've been going one out. As you can see here, the Brothers' defence has run out of players there. But Mel Meninga was a player that drew 2 or 3 players and made that gap happen. And Gary Thompson's a very involved player again today as well.
One of the interesting things, just at this moment, that wind, which was favouring the side running from the northern end, has just swung right around. And it's now favouring Brothers running from the southern end, as Gary French lines up this kick, an important one. High into the air, hits the upright and goes astray. So Brothers still have a 6-point break.
Well, there's not much in it now. It's only one try. And South, if they are going to stay in this game, have to keep up the movements they've been doing the last 3 or 4 minutes. And let's play the game out wide, run the Brothers' defence around.
Incidentally, if this game happened to end in a tie, there'd be no extra time played. If it ended in a tie, the team scoring the most tries would win. If that was equal, it would be the team receiving the most penalties. If that was equal, it would be the team that scored the first try. That's if the game was locked at full time. Brothers lead by 22-16, just under 12 minutes remaining. French to Peter Jackson, having a fine game. Away he goes, Jackson. He's running out of support though at the moment. Taken to ground right on halfway. Knocked over in the tackle of Johnny Tapp. They're looking better though now, Souths. And a lot of their attack has been sparked by Peter Jackson. French, away to Chris Phelan. Phelan trying to push his way up the centre of the ruck. Final tackle coming up for Souths. Sully, over the top of French to Peter Jackson again, trying to slip his pass away to Paul Wallace. The pass, in fact, went forward. Wallace picking it up on the bounce. Cole Thompson has some news from the touchline.
Number 13, Jim Heary off. Number 17, Keith G on, John.
There's Jim Heary sitting on the bench and Keith G replacing him. G wearing jersey number 17 for Brothers. And a penalty. We'll go to Souths. Brothers collapsing the scrum. Souths get the differential penalty. And the reason that looks dark, there are lights on at Lang Park, but they're just the two big stands on the old Frankfurt grandstand side, or some of the high pylons, but the normal bank of lights on top of the new grandstand aren't on at the moment. So even though the lights are on, it still looks very dark down in centre field. Sully gives it away to French. David Burke taken ball and all by Pat Shepardson. French again, out wide to Sully. Then it goes to Phelan. 15 metres into Brothers territory. Phelan runs from dummy half. Picks up another 5 metres. They'll work this time through Gary Thompson. Then to Peter Jackson. Couldn't unload his pass that time as he was thrown to ground by Keith G. Out wide through Gary French. Running hard is David Burke. Final tackle for Souths. Abbott gives it back to French. Here comes the bomb. Kilroy and Dwyer there for it. It bounces. They let it bounce. Oh, that's an awful mistake to make. Both players standing and looking at the other one. Consequently, it goes into touch, and Souths with a feed to this scrum, and a very important scrum it is. Fed by Brad Sully, a scrum win to Souths. French away to Jackson. This is David Burke. Slips as he was put to ground by Keith G. Sully. Lumbey knocks on. And a scrum on the Brothers quarterway. 8.5 minutes remaining. Brothers leading by 22 points to 16. At the end of the game, we'll be announcing our Canterbury man of the match. Receives the outfit of Canterbury Leisure Wear, plus 4 points towards our City player of the Winfield State League, and we'll also give you the points 4, 2 and 1. Differential penalty goes to Brothers. It's against the Souths pack. Not packing in square on.
Well, the Souths to win this game now, they have to maintain the pressure on the Brothers' side, and that's in defence and attack.
So the tap free to be taken 10 metres short of halfway. Russell Klein has the size of a prop forward. Keith G hitting a solid tackle, knocked to ground by Chris Phelan. In fact, Scott Tronk also went into that tackle and was hurt in so doing. Gary Smith, 15 metres into South's territory. This is Dan Staines. Inside Phelan, got away from Gary French. And another good game today, Dan Staines. He's just short of the quarter wide. Bailey goes from dummy half, out to Foster. Little kick into the air, sending David Burke across field. It's bouncing over the dead ball line it goes. Kicked dead by Henry Foster, so South's to bring it back for the tap restart. Tap taken by Muller, given away to Gary Grinke. Brad Sully. His pass to Paul Wallace, which he can't take. Brothers will come up with it. Chris Roach has it. Roach to play it 20 metres into South's territory. Joe Kilroy. The South's defence swarms onto Kilroy, realising that he's a player that can turn a smallest of opportunities into points on the board. He's got to be watched very closely. That's the South's quarterway in the picture. Keith G. Straight ahead he goes. Dan Staines. 8 metres out, and the final tackle coming up for Brothers. Back to Shepardson. Tried to get away a field goal, couldn't do so. A second attempt by Chris Roach. Unsuccessful. So a drop out from underneath South's goal man. 5.5 minutes remaining. Brothers clinging to a lead of 22 points to 16. Russell Klein gets back inside the quarterway. Keith G, 10 metres out. Chris Roach, 8 metres from the line. He was tackled, put over by Mel Meninga. Trevor Bailey across field to link up with Pat Shepardson. He hurls the pass for Rob Grogan. Grogan claimed by Hubie Abbott. Bailey on the blind side to Kilroy. Tackle 10 metres out. Again, Brothers on the last tackle. Bailey goes up the blind side. The defence is there to stop him. And a penalty. He's going to be called out for a professional foul, it'll be. Realising it was the last tackle. In fact, I thought he was going to give a penalty for a professional foul, but in fact, he must have ruled it was a knock-on, but it was the final tackle. So as far as I could see, it should have been a South's ball. If it wasn't going to be a penalty, it should have definitely been a South's ball instead of having to pack a scrum.
I think what happened was that Trevor Bailey put his foot in the touch, and that was the reason for the scrum.
Yeah, still on the last tackle. Right, it should have been a South's ball. So a knock-on and another scrum. Regardless of which way you looked at that incident, I think Souths were the ones who came out of it badly, even though they got the scrum win. I think they should have had possession anyway.
Yes, they didn't fare well over it at all, but I really can't see Brothers surrendering this lead now. They have the game in hand.
Brothers winning the scrum and charging to about 8 metres out from the line. Dan Staines to play it. Henry Foster moves in to be the acting halfback for the Brethren. Shepardson feeds his pass away to Grogan. Played back to Tim Dwyer. He decides to run. Peter Jackson has hold of him, has trouble pulling him to ground. They'll set themselves, no doubt, for a field goal to give them a 7-point margin if they can. Keith G, 3 metres out from the line. They're in an ideal position to drop a field goal. Henry Foster, he elects to run. Back it goes to Bailey. Chris Roach. Roach is held on to in the final tackle. Shepherdson standing deep waiting for it. He has to put it into the air though. David Burke takes it, loses it, scramble for possession, Ray Bournemouth drives on it, and Brothers score the winning try. Brothers score a try, and poor old David Burke, you've got to feel sorry for him, because the kid has done a splendid job today. He's been under a lot of pressure taking the high ball, and the one that really counted at the end was where he made the mistake. Up for it, lost it, into the in goal. Ray Bournemouth there to touchdown. Brothers scored the try that takes them to a lead of 26 points to 16.
Well, certainly it's the luck of the Irish. I think Brothers, it certainly was Brothers' day today. They had to win the first half, and then they've been lucky enough to win the turnaround completely and have the winners in the second half. And I think the wind played a big part in that try just then. Ray Bournemouth was there to seal the try, but the wind put the ball in the air and played havoc with it for young David, and lost control of it and ended up with the Brothers' try.
So Pat Shepherdson lines up the kick. It's there. Brothers lead by 28 to 16. And Brothers have had a little bit of luck. When you look at when they've scored tries, they've scored 4 of them. But Rob Grogan scored 2 minutes before half-time. Pat Shepherdson scored 2 minutes before three-quarter time. And Ray Bournemouth scores 2 minutes before full-time.
Well, it certainly has been their days. But some very good players on the Brothers' side as well. Chris Roach has played very well, has had Henry Foster, Robert Grogan and Dan Staines. Dan Staines had a big game, been working very hard, and Joe Kilroy's always been present as well. And for South, Mel Meninga's very prominent early, but died away in the second half. Gary Thompson and Peter Jackson and Gary French have been working very hard for South.
Let's hear from Bruce Astle on his thoughts on the game.
Well, John, it certainly is the luck of the Irish. I think South have lost the game through their own silly mistakes. They've been dropping ball at vital time, and when they've got themselves into scoring opportunities, they've thrown a bad pass or the ball's gone to the ground. And, full marks too, Brothers. They've controlled the game a lot better than South, and they've scored in the dying minutes of each quarter. And I think that's where you have to play quarter football. You have to play 20-minute quarters, and South haven't been doing that.
So the full-time hooter sounds. It's going to be a Brothers Wynnum Manly final of the Winfield State League. Brothers and Wynnum played the Woolies final. They'll play the Winfield State League final, and they'll play the Woolies Trophy final for being the leading sides at the end of the first 2 rounds. So I suppose they've stamped themselves as the top 2 sides. Brothers defeating Souths by 28 points to 16 in this afternoon's NEC big game. And we'll be back after this break to wrap up the match and also give you the points, those very vital points, for our Canterbury Player of the City series. So Brothers running out winners by 28 points to 16. For Brothers, tries by Henry Foster, Rob Grogan, Pat Shepherdson and Ray Bournemouth. And Shepherdson landed 6 out of 6. For Souths, they're 16 points through tries by Gary French, Gary Thompson and Brad Sully, and Gary French kicking 2 out of 3. The scrums went to Souths by 8 to 7, but the Tightheads were 1-1. The penalties to Brothers by 13 to 8, and the scrum penalties to Brothers by 4 to 3. The Brothers getting home, Rod, with that try that really wrapped them up for them right at the end. But they had to do it the hard way.
Well, I said they worked hard for the game. They had to win the first half, and as it turned out, they had to win the second half as well. So they had a bit of luck, and but the game was a very exciting game. It wasn't really over till right at the end, but Brothers deserved their win. They had control of the game.
So the first try of the match scored by the little Souths 5'8" Gary French. In to score underneath the post, but Brothers hit back with a try soon after as Henry Foster put the ball up into the air. The ball hit the upright, then bounced back into the field of play, and Foster was there to pick it up after he put the kick into the air. He'd probably say he planted that way to hit the upright, and he scored. The next try was scored by Brothers centre Rob Grogan. Dan Staines, a fine piece of work, getting the pass around the corner to Grogan. He pulled Gary Thompson over the line to score. But Gary Thompson himself showed what a good finishing winger he is after this break by Peter Jackson. Thompson backing up on the inside and over. But Brothers came back with the next try, and this one was scored for them by Pat Shepardson. They'd been doing all the attacking after the breeze had sprung around to come from the south in the second half, so Brothers virtually had the breeze for the entire match. And Shepardson very close to the line, getting a pass from Trevor Bailey and barging his way over. But Souths weren't to be denied. Brad Sully came back with the next try after it had been swung wide. Mel Meninga getting his pass on to Hubie Abbott. Coming back infield, Gary Thompson, and again Brad Sully backing up, and Souths were back in the hunt. But just before full time came the try that sealed it for Brothers. A bomb put into the air. David Burkitt had a good game. Made one mistake, he lost that ball, and Ray Baumber, the replacement forward, was there to dive on it. And over to score to give Brothers victory by 28 points to 16. Now our Canterbury player of the match, who takes away the outfit of Canterbury Leisure Wear, and it's the Brothers halfback Henry Foster. Congratulations to him. Henry Foster gets another outfit of Canterbury Leisure Wear as our man of the match. Now he'll also be taking away 4 points in our player of the series for Winfield. We gave 2 points today to Peter Jackson, the South Centre, and 1 point to the Brothers lock forward Dan Staines. In the early game this afternoon, Brett French was the man of the match for Canterbury, getting 4 points, 2 to Bob Linder and 1 to Greg Dowling. So it means that after today, Trevor Gilmeister from Norths is still in front on 14 points. Ian French from Wynnum Manly has 11. And the other players still in the running, well, in fact, they're the only two, because the closest Brothers player is Tim Dwyer on 8, so he can't catch Trevor Gilmeister. So Trevor, if you're out there watching this afternoon, good luck to you. You're clinging to that lead. You'll have to hope that Ian French doesn't win the points on next Wednesday night. Of course, Wednesday night we have the live telecast of the final of the Winfield State League, Brothers and Wynnum Manly. It starts at 8:30, the full game live here on Nine's Wide World of Sports, and that should be a top match. Thanks to the boys down on the touchline, to Bruce Astle and to Cole Thompson. Poor old Souths fellas, they're shell-shocked and in the rain. It hasn't been a good day for them. Thanks, Rod. See you on Wednesday night.
Thanks, John.
And I'm John McCoy on behalf of the Rugby League team. Goodbye.